Hey, everyone. Happy to be live all together. Welcome to the team. So today is the second IMA altogether. We have a lot of new questions, maybe less things to cover about the team because we did it already the last one. But maybe for the first time we can speak to you about something that has been coming back a lot, and I think that's a question that Sébastien will be happy to answer. And here it is. Let's share the good news.
Okay, so yes, we have happy news. We want to tell you that we raised 5 million euros in a private sale round. This was from about 100 purchasers from 18 countries. So we're quite happy, quite proud of this number of people that contributed, because this is really in line with our view of decentralization. There's no big whale, and the coins are well distributed. So this is a first step in all the steps we will have to do to keep Massa decentralized.
Yeah, maybe you can tell a bit more also. So because actually, we will publish an article also to give a bit more information.
We will tell you more about the backers and the people that contributed in a Medium article soon, and we'll publish it on the website also and on the social networks.
Nice. And actually, regarding token sales, token allocation, we had also more questions from the community on this part, and this one is coming back a lot actually. So it's not the first time. So it was also in the form that we distributed. So and it's coming back a lot in the chat. So maybe if you can expand on that.
So yes, first to come back, we set up an incentive program for testnet runners, node runners. So we keep a pool of tokens for the people that run a node in the different episodes of the testnet, from the first one in July to the last one before mainnet. These tokens, we can't tell you exactly how much Massa tokens you will get from the number of points you have right now, but for sure, the more points you have, the more Massa tokens you will have. Regarding the public sale that we are discussing and planning to do later next year, I think we will do our best to have everybody here, early supporters, early node runners, be able to participate in the public side for sure.
Okay, so basically everyone will be able to participate, and of course we want all the early supporters and the node runners to be able to be part of the Massa community, not only on the technical part, but also as token holders. So that's for sure, and that's 100% sure. We have also a lot of questions about the roadmap. So maybe before we expand there, and I let the guys answer also. So we are on the process to prepare to draft the white paper. So where you will have a more detailed roadmap. So the guys will be able to tell you more right now, but also will be able to share, it was just a very early draft at the time of the roadmap. So maybe, guys, if you can speak about it.
Yes, so the mainnet is expected in the second quarter next year. That's our current plan. And we plan to do one testnet episode per month. And we are going to add, as we did in the previous episodes, in each episode we add the last features. So I will let Damir tell you more about the next feature that we plan to add. So I cannot tell you exactly if there will be 6, 8 or 9 or 10 episodes. It will depend on the mainnet launch date. So we will tell you more. You will see more in the white paper, and as time goes, we will tell you more details.
Okay, Damir.
Yes, so for the roadmap on the technical side, For now, we are following the plan. So everything that's in the technical paper is pretty much there. That's been the case for the last episode. The new points that are going to happen in this episode, episode 4, are mostly linked to the API RPC. So people complained that we don't have a stable RPC. It was changing all the time. It was very hard to communicate with nodes. It was very hard to develop something on nodes. For different reasons. For example, first of all, as I said, it's not stable. We were changing it all the time. And second, it was not very much optimized because we built it as we built the system. And also, it was using a non-standard way of communicating. So now we have switched to a whole new RPC. It was in pre-preview in the previous episode, but now it's ready. It's going to use JSON RPC, so everybody who is used to communicating with Ethereum nodes will be able to use the Massa nodes as well. The idea is that it's the same way of communicating. There's less endpoints, they are documented, and they will be more stable. So all the information will be gathered at the same points, and it's going to be easy to use. And also, we're going to help people use it and build around Massa. So we'll be able to build applications to communicate with the nodes, finally. So that's one thing. Then we also started a lot of optimization work everywhere along the system. And in particular, we are reaching the last phases of the specification of the smart contracts engine. So I'm going to tell you more about it a bit later, but for now, the plans for the Explorer and the API are the following. The API is ready. The new API is ready. It's going to be different. There's going to be a new client also connecting to the new API that is going to be updated and be different as well. So we want also your feedback to improve it along the way of episode 4. And in terms of Explorer, we had some problems with the previous episode, mostly because a lot of people came. The Explorer was directly communicating with one of our nodes, and this was causing problems because at the beginning, at episode 1 and 2, it was fine. There were few people. The load on the node was low, but as many people, like thousands of people, came during episode 3, all of a sudden the node came under very heavy load, and we couldn't continue this way. So we started building some kind of caching approaches to protect the node, also some middlewares that are a work in progress. So the goal is to be able to gradually improve the fluidity and the responsiveness of the Explorer during this phase. So this is really a work we started, and it should also improve the new API, by the way. So with the new API, we also had to migrate all the tools. So the Explorer, the chatbot, the faucet, everything had to be migrated. So we're finishing this now as we speak, and it's going to be ready for episode 4.
And also maybe you can you can tell a bit more about it, because even for the documentation and so on, and also for the API, we had a lot of requests from the community, because some people are doing like Telegram bots, which are like actually explorers. We have some of them which are like pinging the nodes to know basically where they're based or which kind of VPS they use. So also, yeah, thank you for everyone from the community who did these bots, and also thank you also to Pablo, who wants to work on features related to the Explorer. So maybe, yeah, if you can say a bit more how it's working, and with the devs and with the community, what's your relation, and what's the take?
Okay, so first of all, congratulations to everyone in the community who managed to actually build chatbots and things, given that there was no documentation that the API was unstable. That's already quite a feat. Congratulations for that. Really, it's very impressive. So these people basically reverse engineered everything and managed to build chatbots. It's very impressive. Now we have a proper RPC API that we're going to improve with the community. So we really want people to start building things now that we have the documentation. And once we have feedback, we're going to improve it quickly. So during the episode, as soon as we have feedback, we're going to implement it and publish it right away. So it's going to be, I expect, quite a few minor versions that are going to be compatible. So not everybody is going to have to reinstall everything, but people who want to use new features of the RPC will be able to update their nodes to minor versions to improve it. So that's for the RPC. Also for the Explorer, of course, for the Explorer, we started working with some people to build the new Explorer. It's a work in progress. And the goal is to have it ready to come like as soon as possible. I don't know yet exactly how much, but the idea is the current Explorer, initially I made it quickly in a couple of days, and we stayed with it for a while. Now it's been improved by Adrien, but it's still kind of a bit clumsy. The idea is to get it done by some professional people and have something really good looking and more in tune with what you would expect from us, both in terms of speed and in terms of visual appeal. So that's for the Explorer part, and of course we welcome the community to work on all of that as well. So if any of you guys want to, or girls want to be involved, we welcome it, and especially for the RPC part. So if people want to start building clients, want to start building like GUI stuff, want to start building explorers, want to start integrating Massa with existing products and so on, we welcome it, we will reward it, and also we will help you. Now we have hired an extra person, Noxa. He will also guide you into, he's actually going to be full-time in the community at the beginning, and he's going to help you with all that.
So yeah, maybe just to summarize also. So indeed, you might have seen already for the people in the community, Noxa would join the team, and we already started to answer a couple of questions, and we're going to help also like the developers and everything like that to build on Massa. And also some of you might know, because we already spoke about it in the chat, but indeed we want to have a more beautiful, I would say, Explorer that will be issued and which is in development for the front end, so that you should be able to see by the end of the month. And as well as Damir said, we want to strengthen a bit. Everything which is related to I would say the decentralization of our own nodes to continue. So basically, so that the Explorer is never done. As it might happen, because it's good to speak about decentralization, but even ourselves sometimes we were not enough decentralized. So that's something interesting. I will take also later the questions which are in the chats, so don't worry, and I will just finish with the guys the first set of questions, more general. We had another question that might be interesting, like which is also coming back a lot, which is this one. So I think it's something for Damir and Adrien. If you can tell us more about it.
Okay, so first of all, as a quick reminder, the idea is that Massa is highly asynchronous. We allow people to create blocks in parallel, which increases the throughput of transactions. That's how we scale. But this also creates challenges. For example, for smart contracts, we end up having calls to smart contracts creating in parallel. And we need to find an order for these guys. Either find an order or try to embrace asynchronicity. So as a first step, as a preliminary specification, we had decided to go for full asynchronicity. So to allow communication between parallel threads only through message passing. And these had advantages. For example, we could create things that had never been done before. For example, allowing smart contracts to call themselves with a delay automatically, or listen to some events and be triggered automatically, and things like that. Self-wake up, which is quite unique. But it also had problems, exactly the one that's mentioned here, with this composability. So what if I want to atomically call one smart contract from one thread to another? Well, we could not. With this approach, we could not. Basically, we could call synchronously smart contracts from one thread to the same thread, no problem. But to call from one thread to the other, we had to use message passing, which is asynchronous, so many things could happen in between. So we worked further on that. We heard this complaint, we heard this problem. we studied further the theory behind what we can do, and we came up with a plan to allow us to, in a deterministic way, basically sort all the transactions that happened and be able to execute them in the virtual machine in a fully sequential way. So on the one hand, we'll have a data structure that's going to be the block graph. It is going to continue to include the blocks in the same way in parallel threads to increase throughput of input information. But the virtual machine is going to be able to run directly on the ordered transactions of all these blocks. So from the point of view of, let's say, smart contracts, threads will become irrelevant, almost completely irrelevant. So the programmers will not have to bother with blocks, with choosing when to use message passing versus synchronous calls. But we still want to keep the innovations we have initially. So we're going to allow both. So you don't bother anymore with the threads, but you can synchronously call any smart contracts from anywhere to anywhere, and you can also do the asynchronous stuff, might as well. We'll allow both kinds of interactions. And from the point of view of the developer experience, the idea is to allow both synchronous and asynchronous calls, and to allow people to program in their favorite language. For that, we're going to have a WebAssembly interpreter on the system, as expected. And the Python, for example, if you want to program in Python, the Python interpreter will be a smart contract in itself and be able to execute, to interpret Python code on the site, which means that everybody will be able to use their favorite language without having to learn Solidity, nor having to know exactly how blockchains work, because it's going to look more like AWS Lambda or something like that. Than Ethereum. So it's going to be a cloud-like look and feel. The goal is to reach as many existing developers as possible, and not only existing Ethereum Solidity developers.
So yeah, basically reaching both communities, right? So it's like widening the reach of developers which are able to develop on Massa.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Sorry?
Who are the developers who are going to develop on Massa?
Yeah, so basically to allow like everyone to develop on Massa, not only Solidity developers, so to reach both communities.
Yes, so the goal is to be accessible always. So accessible in terms of hardware to run nodes, accessible in terms of how easy it is to understand the system, and accessible in terms of actually deploying your own smart contracts.
So to continue on everything which is related to decentralization that we spoke a bit earlier, we had a question which is related to many things in Massa. I think it's a question for Adrien. It's this one. Everything related to VPS, decentralization, and more.
Yeah, I think it's very important, this one. So as you know, our goal is to have like a very decentralized system. Like and decentralization is comes from two ways. Like you need to have a lot of people running nodes, but if all those nodes are on the same VPS, then it's not decentralized anymore. Like, for example, there are statistics of nodes running for Avalanche or Bitcoin, Ethereum, and in many cases, like especially for new blockchains that have very hard hardware requirements, then most of the nodes are running on the same VPS provider, and this can be a problem. Like, for example, if this VPS provider fails, and I think it happened for Phantom, then the network can halt if the nodes that fail represent more than like 30% of the stake or 50% of the stake. So that's why we introduced the maxing factor. So in order to allow people to run nodes, in order to incentivize people running nodes on very different VPS providers, and also from like the foundation of the protocol. Like when we designed the protocol, we designed it with. I think there is another question on that, but it's good to state it now. But we designed it with a very low hardware requirements, like as low as possible, in order to people to be able to run nodes at home. on very different BPS provider and not the one with a very big machine. So this is very important. Like also a lot of people are asking about like if they are able to run Massa on a Raspberry Pi. Unfortunately, it's not possible, and you have to understand that you have to find a balance between hardware requirements and performances. Like if you want to be decentralized and to have good performances, then you cannot run on Raspberry Pi. And we try to find a good balance that like anyone can run a node at home on a standard computer, but running on a Raspberry Pi would really hinder the performances. So we are trying to find the perfect balance, and we try to aim for something like a standard desktop computer with 8 cores and 16 gigabytes of RAM. Vincent just linked Twitter the specs of the smart contract also if you have to have a look. So yeah, I think that summarizes it.
Maybe you can just say again. So yeah, what's right now like the
right
actual?
now,
Yeah, what's the actual? Well, I mean, what's a node possible like possibly can run with, and in the future, like what do we want to reach?
For now, it's around like 4 cores and 8 gigabytes of RAM should be enough. And in the future, we try to aim for something like 8 cores and 16 gigabytes. I mean, it can change a bit, but we want to not go beyond that because then we think it will be hard for people to run nodes themselves. So that
yeah.
But as development goes, we'll have a better idea of the exact hardware requirements.
Maybe I can say a few words on the number of transactions per second. Yeah, we have to understand that there's a trade-off between the number of transactions per second you want to process and the hardware, the minimal hardware you want to enforce. So we all want to have a very scalable blockchain, but we all want to access easily the fact of running a node. And those are a bit contradictory because the more transactions you process, the more time it uses on your CPU in verification, mainly in the processing of the ledger. So maybe you've seen that in the Testnet 3, episode 3, the last one, I put 100 transactions per second as a background number of transactions. That was also to force very weak nodes to stop. They couldn't handle the load. And at the very end of the episode, so we got about 3,000 nodes at 100 transactions per second. So this is already a success. And at the end of the last episode, so a few days ago, I tried to break the network by increasing the number of transactions per second. So I put first 200 transactions per second for one night. And we lost, I don't know, 500 nodes. Then I put 300 transactions per second. We lost another 1,000 nodes. And with 400 transactions per second, I think that was only 300 nodes keeping up. So in the next phase, we will put 200 transactions per second, so twice the throughput of this episode. And slightly we will increase it in the next episode towards the mainnet, where we aim at several thousand transactions per second. So the hardware requirements will increase every episode a bit to reach the one we want for the mainnet.
So yeah, that's why sometimes, just for people to understand, we have often questions by the end, at the end of the episode. So first, like each new episode, there are more transactions per second. That's the first thing. So of course, if you had the lower hardware requirements, lower than the hardware requirements that we have, so sometimes it worked, but now it's going to be harder and harder to make it work. so you can like get desynchronized. And second thing, it's also important to understand. So we make announcement not every time, but we'll do it again and again. At the end of each episode, we try to increase even more the number of transactions per second. So it's normal that even if it's working for the full episode, that sometimes just like your scoring for rewards might slightly decrease, but it's only really the last day of the episode for a couple of hours. It's just also to see how the network is resilient. So we will publish also the data in the next article to come before the episode 4. So you can see how many nodes we had, how many nodes we had before the network broke, when we increased again the transaction per second, and things like that. So that's something which is always very interesting to see where we are at and to see if the nodes are sustainable. Also, maybe we had like a couple of questions in the chat, a lot from Sachin. I hope I say well your name. I apologize if it's not the case.
Question the white paper?
Yes, exactly. So I let you ask about the white paper. Yes, exactly.
It was regarding the technical white paper. We mentioned that we will release a new version, an updated version with more better proof, better bounds on the security, etc. And as Damir said, we are currently specifying the smart contract, and this like makes us think a lot about the system and also improving the system, thinking about new improvement that we can make, and also this explains why we haven't published it yet. Also, we are quite busy with the private sale, so I'm confident in the next months we'll be able to publish it, but we don't want to rush it as we are like really going deep into the system right now and trying to improve it while thinking about the smart contract and jacking. So like the current technical white paper like really explains the architecture and so gives good ideas about the security of the system, but we will make an updated version when we are quite sure that.
And on the less technical part, of course, so we're going to publish before the white paper, but articles which are going to help to frame a bit more this white paper. So of course, with the backers, with the private sale, with the roadmap, also with more details. So as you saw in this live stream, we've put a draft of the roadmap. So that was in our first deck at the time, but which is going to be much more detailed for each of the parts. And also for everything which is related to the smart contract. So, and also there are like articles, there is already an article which is ready regarding the team. So with a lot more information about Sébastien, Adrien, and Damir. So you are going to have all that, which are going like to frame basically the white paper. But on the technical part, of course, so for this V0, V1, it's going to be by the end of the year, but we don't want to rush it, just to be sure that everything is in order. And also still from Sachin, we still had a couple of questions. Actually, I don't know if it's we want to take it. So maybe Damir, I feel you ready to jump.
Yeah, that's fine.
To say more. So tell everything you can say about the smart contract engine.
So Sachin was quite fast. He already read the specification of the smart contract engine, and he has some questions. So first of all, this is a non-final specification. There's going to be 2 concurrent specifications before we decide about one. But one thing they have in common is that we have this smart contract virtual machine that is going to take the blocks from the graph, from the current block click, and order them by their slot number, basically, and execute the operations that are inside in the order they appear in the block. So we have an absolute order of all blocks that are in the graph. That's how we can execute in order. The problem is that this view is kind of subjective, and it's not attached to a given block. It's attached to a current view of the block click. But because different threads are asynchronous, different people will have different views at different time until these views converge before finality. Now, so the trick we use is to extract these transactions from the graph and order them in another parallel world, if you wish. So that's what's in the specification here. The trouble we run, the trouble in which we run here is paying fees for transactions. So paying fees for transactions. So in order for a block creator to be able to create a block and ensure that the transactions inside will actually pay the fees they pretend to be paying, which is gas and inclusion fee. They need to ensure that this money is available in the first place, and it cannot have been spent in a parallel block somewhere. Now, because we don't have threads anymore in the smart contract world, people technically can spend coins from any thread to any thread. This limitation is gone. That's why we have to split the ledger in this specification in 2 points. One is in the smart contract world, where everything is free. There's no more threads. Only everything is listed through slot number. And the previous world, the graph world, the consensus world, where coins are used mostly for, or actually only for paying fees. There's no smart contracts, and they're also used for buying rolls and stuff like that. So basically everything protocol related is on the one side, and there's this parallel universe that's observing the current state of the graph, and is taking information from it to execute the smart contracts in a world that's purely smart contract, which has different ledger. And we run initially into some trouble into figuring out how to transfer coins from one world to the other. So sending coins from the graph is easy towards the smart contract system, mostly because it's just basically burning coins on the graph side, which is observed in the smart contract side, which will create the blocks in the smart contract world. So that's kind of transparent. It can even be hidden by the client so that people don't even know it's happening. The other way around is a bit more complicated, bringing coins back from the smart contract world to the graph world. That's where we had to innovate a bit and figure out ways to do it. And the first way we came up with is basically it's a bit complicated, specified in the document, but the idea is it takes time. It takes almost a cycle to bring coins back. And because of this limitation, no further than yesterday, we already worked on one more improvement, and this new improvement would actually fuse the 2 ledgers together. This requirement to have 2 separate ledgers, 2 separate worlds will be removed, and we might be able to fuse the 2 ledgers together and to remove this limitation. So we're still writing the specification of this new improvement, but what's interesting is that we can already start thinking about prototypes with the current specification, because it's technically complete. Of course, we also open to feedback, so feel free to go to the GitLab and send us feedback about the specification of the smart contract engine. Of course, it doesn't go into detail in terms of how things are executed. It just goes into details into how things are ordered and how they are fed to the engine, to the virtual machine. It's not specifying the virtual machine itself. And to give you an idea, the virtual machine itself is probably going to be Wasmer. And because Wasmer offers Wasm interpreter as well as Wasm written interpreters for other languages. So that's the idea.
I think in the chat we don't have any more questions right now. So maybe that's a question for Sébastien.
Sorry, I was. Okay, so we have different challenges. I would say one is on getting a number of developers in Rust to work with us at Massa for different reasons. Rust is a young language. There's not a lot of developers. Blockchain is also new, so the intersection of both is small, and we would like, so if in the people listening us, they are people that can develop Rust, that can develop smart contracts, or anything related to blockchain. We'll be happy to get in contact with you, or in the future to develop applications or anything built on Massa. What else?
Those challenges?
Yeah.
I mean, the main challenge of Massa is decentralization.
Okay.
Because when you're centralized, it's pretty easy to go at hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. It's very easy to be able to fund many projects because you control all the coin supply. If you decide to be decentralized from scratch, there's a lot more challenges. You get to spend less coins because you keep less for yourself, so you can give less coins to projects of your choice. You need to do it in a more smart way and to implicate the community in a different way. There is a challenge from the technical part as well. We cannot have everybody connect to everybody, like it's the case in Avalanche. We cannot have people, like we cannot have centralized nodes that are going to always respond correctly, like master nodes, super nodes, whatever. We don't have that, which creates some more complexity in the network, in the propagation of information, because we need to stick to gossip, basically, which is slow. And for all of that, plus decentralization of power, because in the end we'll have less control, less and less, and in the end, very little. We'll not be able to just push an update and force everybody to update. It's going to have to go through a voting process and things like that. And all of that are quite unique challenges. It's not been done before, to our knowledge. And we are feeling like we might be the first ones facing all of that together at the same time. So that's a real challenge. Now, there's also a challenge about the community. We need to actually implicate the community in the process of development. Usually, many projects, what they do is they just implicate the community in the fundraising, and then they develop, get the thing developed by some team, and they publish it. We would like to implicate the community more and more into the thing. That's also why we started publishing the testnet before even raising any kind of funds. And we wanted feedback from the community. We want people to get implicated. And speaking of that, there's been a vote from the community to switch from GitLab to GitHub. People voted for GitHub. So we are going to operate the switch. So not right now, but it's going to happen maybe in the next phase. And yeah, so that's mainly the challenges we have now. Yeah, that's the main challenges, I think.
Yeah, to keep everyone happy and build with the community, I think also is like yeah, one of the most important one. And also, I mean, as we see sometimes, it's always a challenge, you know, to confront yourself to blockchains which are super centralized. So I advise everyone also to always check, you know, like the tokenomics or infrastructure structure. So of some blockchains they find super fast. And they think are super decentralized. So it's something which is always super interesting, because if you keep, you know, 40%, 50%, 70% of the coins, or if your nodes are all running on only one provider, it's not a blockchain. Basically, it's more a database, which is not really decentralized. Yeah, so yeah, a database which is actually more expensive than a database to run. So it's always something which is interesting. So again, I advise people who are asking about the finality, who are asking about blockchains and so on, and giving some examples, to always dig in the white papers of the examples they use. I think it's something which is always interesting to know more about. But yeah, so maybe Sébastien, you want to have the final word, or maybe like three of you, maybe you can say something to the community before we close.
I wanted to add another last challenge we had. Basically, one of the main challenges we have is that we're building something completely different. If you think about it, if you read the current specification of the smart contract engine, there's nothing similar. It's the first time somebody does that, And the problem with that is that we can't specify everything, so we need to develop, and we're going to discover as we develop and try. That's why we also ask the community for some understanding that there's going to be some experimentation. Things will fail until they converge to something that works. It's a research process. That's it.
On my side, I would like to thank you all for running nodes or for following us. We had 3,000 nodes on the Testnet episode 3, which is a milestone, I think. And I would like to thank also the contributors to the private sale, 100 of them. And yeah, personally, I'm really looking forward to the first use case of the smart contracts, and I'm really looking forward to build, for instance, games in Python on the smart contracts of Massa.
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone also, and I think as Damir said, one of the biggest challenge is to be very, like, we're really trying to be transparent about our build process, soft process, and trying to build like a tech that is very, that people can understand, and like this involves many challenges, like trying to do something simple, but also documenting it, also trying to be transparent on what we do, and as he said, like this involves releasing something that sometimes fail, like during Testnet, of course. But so we are very happy that like that you understand that sometimes things don't work like for the first days of the testnet, because like we are really trying new things and trying to be as transparent as possible about it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Right. Sorry, I wanted also to say thank you to all our amazing, we call them Massa supporters. So everyone who is like building the bot and everything, but also, I mean, to all our volunteers and moderators who launch, you know, the unofficial community. So the French one with Yassine, the Chinese-speaking one with Chloe, the Russian-speaking one with Maxime, Secordi, Skynod, the Turkish-speaking one with Alice and El Turco. So all of you, and I mean everyone, thank you very much. Thank you also to Asni and to Vladislav, so that you see often in the Discord and in the Telegram, because I mean they are like amazing, and they are often answering questions faster than us. So thanks a lot, guys, and lady. Thank you very much. So I think it's concluded. So wish you a good evening, everyone. It will be available on replay, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.